All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, going to be reviewing The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. If you haven't checked it out yet, I've done a trailer reaction, I've done trailer breakdown, I've done a drink and discuss of this book specifically. Um, so other stuff that's Wheel of Time related. I am excited to talk about this. I do think that if you have not seen the drink and discuss, check it out after this if you do enjoy it. The part of the reason I like doing those is to give you, the viewer, a more than just my perspective on the book, because my perspective isn't the only perspective. There are plenty of other people who agree or disagree with me, or agree with me in certain ways and disagree with me in certain ways, and that's okay. We all bring a different perspective into what we read and into our own lives. We have different, paths that have led us to the point of our lives, and having that does color our reading, and it does change our opinions. So I'm more than happy to talk about those, and I really enjoy bringing my friends in to agree and disagree with me and show you that I am not. I am definitely fallible, and there's definitely things that I am drawn to that they are not drawn to. But with that being said, let's talk about The Eye of the World. You might be watching this because you're interested in reading The Wheel of Time, and you just have been like, oh God, but it's such a long series. And you're right, it is extremely long. It's 14 books. There is a prequel book too, which I will get into later. I don't recommend starting with that. I recommend starting with Eye of the World and moving through there. Uh, I don't want to gatekeep by any means. If you are really interested in reading this book, sit down and read it. Just understand that you are making a commitment to finish the series. It is a long journey. It is, I'm telling you now, it is worth the journey. It is a really, like, I was very satisfied with the end. This is my third time listening to the series, and it takes me, who I listen to almost everything I read. It takes me 3 months, and I do it at an absurd pace where sometimes I'll be doing, listening for 16 hours a day. And it usually takes me 3 months to finish the entirety of the series if I am just doing that series with nothing else. So be warned of that. Um, this book is about, and this whole series is about, it's about a bunch of characters, but Rand, Perrin, Matt, Egwene, and Nynaeve are kind of the centerpieces of the story, with Rand kind of being the main character of the main characters, but all of them have um, character journeys with their own perspectives and stuff like that. That's what kind of makes this long, is there's so many journeys throughout this story that you're not just watching one character travel to the end of their road. You're watching a ton of characters interweave and intermix without throughout each other's journeys and paths, and they go different directions, and then come back together, and they go separate, and tons of different things like that. Um, this book in particular deals with, like, the first journey. To me, the way I always like to describe it is it's like this D&D party adventure where, like, it blends that kind of adventuring party in with the classic fantasy trope of uh, the chosen one in a small town being taken into the wider world. And part of the reason that trope is so used and throughout, like, everything. I mean, we think about, like, Harry Potter's kind of like that a little bit. Aragon, there's a ton of different books. Even Lord of the Rings uses that trope, where the peaceful life is interrupted by outside forces that force the character to leave. Um, the reason that's so popular is because it allows the writer to show these strange sights through the lens of the normal, which is the main character. And this is no exception to that. There are cool magic and things going on in the world that people have thought are myths and legends, but they're actually real. With that, there are, other creatures and beasts and different ways to travel through the world. It's hard to explain in a summary, but it's definitely, if you are into epic fantasy, this is definitely a book for you. Um, the positive things, and I will get into with this book are I really think Moraine is probably one of the best characters in this book specifically. She's mysterious, she's interesting, she has seems to have complex motivations. Some of the other characters don't have quite as much depth right off the bat, but there's just like it's the things that are really cool about this is for me I really enjoyed reading this again because there's so many little things that are kind of set up in this book that I can appreciate since I've read it multiple times, and you might not catch all those right away. Um, I think that the best part of Jordan's writing is his world building. He is really good at making really cool things in this magical universe, and those come out in the text to the point of like I'm like, no, don't leave here. I want to know more about this. But you don't get that necessarily right off the bat. You're left with some of these questions, which is good because then that forces the reader to be driven to read more and more and more. And that's just a technique of writing. With that, world building's awesome. With this book specifically, my criticisms for it are generally that it definitely feels more of that traditional tropey style of let's go from point A to point B to point C to point D and so on. There are some hiccups in that. There are some really cool character moments throughout the story. There are some the party gets split at one point and we get a bunch of different perspectives going on until they, we get to see them together again. So there's a lot of interesting stuff like that. But yeah, that kind of tailoring events is definitely for me reminiscent of first books. It often happens, I feel like, in a lot of writers' first books because it's much easier to write essentially a short story and just put a bunch of short stories that are connected together rather than think about the like because our brains just cannot process the complexity of an overarching plot, and doing that takes a lot of skill and a lot of effort and work to get to that level of writing. I think the ending of this book is very weird. It just feels a little out of like it feels like we need a big moment, and that's feels like that's the only reason that it's in there. The female characters, Nynaeve and Egwene, are I mean, even the boys in this book, the Perrin, Matt, and Rand are Perrin, Matt, and Rand are a little developed, but they're very similar, which is I forgive a little bit because they're from a small town, so they have similar interests and personalities and stuff like that, and they start to divide out later. The female characters in this book, specifically Nynaeve and Egwene, are very poorly done. I will just say that straight up. I don't think they're well done. I think that when the show comes out, that problem will be fixed. But I think that these feel like a white man trying to write from a girl's perspective and not succeeding in it. I don't think they're good characters at this point. And unfortunately, that trend continues for a couple books before they start to actually develop real personalities. And I think that's just a matter of like getting better at writing and realizing that this was a big critique point for Jordan. So be warned of that. I promise they do get better, but in this book specifically, not necessarily the best. Those are like the big things that for me that kind of made or break were making or breaking this book. I do think out of the Wheel of Time, and maybe I'll end up doing a tier video of what Wheel of Time books are the best. I do think that The Eye of the World is one of the worst books, if not the worst book in the series. I'm not really counting New Spring into that, which I need to give another shot, but but with the main series, I think that the first book is the one. Like, the first read through I was okay with, but like going back and reading through it again, there are parts of it that I really enjoy and like drive me to the end of it, and I'm driven because I know what's coming. But I I know that this was the one that I enjoyed the least out of the entirety of the series. So, if you do enjoy this book, you know, you got more to look forward to. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for this one. I'm not trying to go into too many spoilers with this for those who want to want kind of a launch pad into the series to see if they like get a brief summary of kind of what's going on, positives and critiques of it. I'll probably go into more deep, not super deep criticism. If you want to check out some deep criticism, we'll be doing drink and discuss videos throughout the entirety of the series. So we're going to be doing all the Wheel of Time books, which will give you a deep dive into almost every event throughout the book. But for me, I just want to get into the big things and the criticisms and positives that I see throughout the book. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about the book. I really love talking about the Wheel of Time. I think it's a great series. I think it's one of my favorite series of all time. I mean, we still have other shots with that to be that place to be taken away from, but definitely a good time. I really enjoy it. I mean, this is my third time going through it, so I love talking about it. I love the series quite a bit. And then, you know, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. Helps us out a lot. I really want the channel to grow and to build this community of people that can freely discuss books that they love and that they can talk about in a critical way that is not an aggressive way, you know, where we can all come together and kind of, you know, agree to disagree on certain points, but have a good discussion. I think that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for watching.